Hello, welcome to my channel. Everyone has to read from and write to files. Today I'm going to walk through how to open, close, read from, write to, and append to a file. Opening a file. There are two ways to open a file. As you can see, one is very simple, just F equals open file path mode. You do something and then you close the file. The other one is the one I prefer, with open file path, and then you give the mode R, W, A, something like that, as F, the file pointer. And then you use the file pointer to read the file, and whatever is read is saved in text. Simple, right? Usually I find official documentation boring, but the official Python documentation is really good. Here's what they have to say. It is good practice to use the with keyword when dealing with file objects. The advantage is that the file is properly closed after its sweep finishes, even if an exception is raised at some point. I prefer the second formulation, the one that uses with open rather than F equals open, because I don't have to remember to close the file. And that is what I use in my own life, so that's what I'm going to use from now on in this tutorial. But I wanted to show you both formulations, because you will see them. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the default mode. In other words, what will happen if no mode is specified. For instance, if you just say with open file path as F and not supply a mode, then that piece of code will read a file. So the default mode is that if no mode is specified, R will be assumed. And that's good to know. I don't use the default mode. I like to specify R, W, A, or what have you. But if you're reading someone else's code and they haven't, then that's useful. I've been talking about modes, and we'll get into this a bit later, but essentially there's R for read, W for write, B for binary, T for text, and plus, which has a special meaning that I'll get to in a minute. That's not all of them, but those are what I found are the most commonly used. I put some code up on the screen there that will show you how to read two kinds of data, text data and list data. And I won't go through that, I won't read out the code, you can see it. A couple of comments about read list data. You can see that I use a list completion there, the third line of that. And all that does is it strips off any new line characters from the beginning of the string and from the end of the string. And then it puts it into a list. And if there's any spaces or any space with just a new line character in it, it will eliminate that line from my lines. You won't have to worry about having new line characters, and you won't have to worry about having trailing or leading spaces. I found it really, really handy, that code. I use it all the time. So now let's talk about writing to a file. And writing to a file is super easy, just like reading. Of course, and this doesn't just apply to Python, but when you write a list to a file, you want each element of the list to be a line in the file, then you will have to insert a new line character before you save that line. So let's talk about reading binary data. Most of the data I work with is text data, but if you want to read image data or something like that, you'll have to read it as binaries. So here you see two formulations for that. The form is exactly as I've discussed previously, so I'm not going to go over that. You just put, if you want to write binary data, the mode is WB, and if you want to read it, the mode is RB. Simple. So now let's talk about the plus operator. The plus operator can be used to write to a file rather than simply read it. So for instance, with open file path and then the mode being R+, that will not just read a file, but if you want, it will also write to it. So you can see I've put the code up there and it looks kind of odd. Let's talk about creating and deleting files. There's no independent command, or at least not that I could find, for creating a file. But if we do want to create a file, all you have to do is do with open file path and then W, and that's it. And then just have pass as the next line. That will create an empty file. And to remove a file, all you have to do is OS remove and then the file path, and the file will be removed. And you won't be prompted, it'll just go, so be sure. So reading and writing JSON files. The topic of JSON files, it's a big topic and it deserves a video series all of its own, but I'm just going to say JSON is a standardized format used to pass data around and has become the standard for information exchange. So as you can imagine, it saves time to write data in JSON format rather than converting that data into a text form, saving the text, then reading the text, then putting the text in JSON format. All you have to do is import the JSON module. And here on the screen, this is how you would read JSON data and write JSON data. And it's super easy and quick. And one of the things I love about this is that it doesn't save it in encrypted form. So you can look in the text file and you can just read the data. And I find that So useful. That's it. It was another short video today. If you have any questions about what I've gone over, please leave a comment and I will get back to you. If you have a suggestion for a future tutorial, please leave it. I'm always looking for things to talk about. I really appreciate you listening, and I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, good coding.